Welcome to the Genesis of the Doctor podcast, where we're taking a journey through the time and space of the history of Doctor Who. I'm Tris.
And I'm Joy.
And for today's episode, we're focusing on the 5th and 6th serials of Season 3, The Massacre and The Ark. Oh god, this is the only 5th and 6th. God, last time was so long!
Yep.
Jeez. Okay. I have quite a few thoughts for this. I notably have like twice the amount of notes for the Massacre than I do for the Ark. But that might be because the Ark was actually a surviving episode, which I did not realize how much I would actually appreciate until I was like halfway through. I'm like, oh god, it felt so good to be able to see it all again.
Yeah.
But let's start with the Massacre. So we have another classic story set in France during some very not good times.
Yep.
This was the premise to this was really interesting because I really like how it was just the Doctor just wants to go meet someone famous, and then Steven has to kind of pick up for the fact that the Doctor's gone missing. It's mostly a Steven episode, it's mostly a Steven story, and I actually really like that.
Yeah, I think they do a lot of good with Steven in this story. I don't really think, like, anything else is all that great, but Steven himself, I think, has a lot of good here.
There's a lot of good to really establish, like, who he is as a character and what his ideals are, especially after everything they've already been through.
And then, like, I mentioned last time that William Hartnell plays a second character. I didn't realize that was supposed to be a plot twist, so I apologize for spoiling it.
No, that's fine.
I feel like they kind of wasted him in the role, because he's only in, like, 5 scenes, and then he's dead. So it's like, okay.
Like,
he's only in episode 3.
When they, like, hyped him up to be more, I thought it was going to be, like, the villain, and maybe we were going to go over something about maybe the alien origins of the Doctor having other faces, or, you know, just for some reason having this face. Probably not, a bit too early for that, but no, the most we really had was Steven going through a moment of thinking the Doctor was dead, and then it turns out he's not. We still don't know what he was doing the entire time he was gone, but William Hartnell as the Abbot feels more like they couldn't get another actor, and they decided, hey, let's play into it and make Steven really confused about it.
Apparently, William Hartnell wanted to play a second role in the show. It's like, that's why they wrote this story this way.
Right.
But yeah, I feel like they definitely just like didn't do much with the idea.
Yeah. Again, he was killed off way too quickly. And all it really did was serve the purpose of confusing Steven. It wasn't like the man saw the Doctor and started posing as the Doctor and having influence or anything like that. It was just, it turns out it's not the Doctor in different clothes. It's the Doctor. The Doctor's off doing who knows what this entire time, while Steven's dealing with it. Where is he? And that's really it.
Yeah. Apparently, some people theorize that during this story is when the first Doctor is taken for the 5 Doctors, because in the 5 Doctors are just kind of scooped out of time, sort of thing.
That makes sense.
But apparently that also doesn't really line up with how he's portrayed in the 5 Doctors, so...
Isn't he with Susan in the 5 Doctors?
Well, yeah, but she's also pulled out separately from her own time, like after she left the first Doctor.
Gotcha.
But yeah, like they don't explain where he was at all.
And I gotta say, I really didn't like his attitude. Like, once he came back, like, I don't know, like, he literally, one of the first things he says when he shows back up is, "Oh, Steven, if you stayed at the tavern, nothing would have happened." And Steven just goes, "Oh, I did stay, and you didn't show up." And the Doctor basically just goes, "Oh, well." Like, what? You're not gonna explain that more? You're not gonna do anything with that? You're gonna pin the blame on Steven, and when he goes, "No, it wasn't my fault," you're just gonna respond with, "Oh, well." Like, no.
Yeah.
And then the horrors of the Massacre, and Steven kind of breaking down about how, like, we should have brought on Anne because she probably died, and calling the Doctor out for being responsible for her death by saying, "Oh, go home, stay inside, and you'll be safe," instead of not taking her. And his whole excuse is, "Oh, well, even after all this time, you couldn't understand. I can't change history. You brought Katarina in 2 stories ago. Willingly.
Yeah.
That's no different whatsoever.
And, like, it's kind of implied that the guy he meets at the beginning of the story, like, he tells him to get out of Paris and stuff. So it's like, you already did change history.
Yep.
In this exact same story.
Yep.
Apparently, Anne was originally considered to be a new companion.
I had a feeling.
So that's probably why they just suddenly decided not to do that. They basically had the realization that, like, oh, well, if we didn't want Katarina because she doesn't understand technology, we don't want Anne either.
But
so
why
they just
don't... Like,
suddenly got rid of her.
Come on, that's so cool. Like, it's already cool that we have Steven and we had Vicky, like, companions from the future that understood a bit more already. Like, it's so cool to have someone from, like, history and, like, getting them to learn these things. Like, I wish they understood that. That would have been so cool. This girl had nothing. Like, she literally had nothing. She had nowhere to go, nothing to do, and would have been killed no matter where she went. And she, like, really drove that home, and the doctor's just like, stop prattling and listen to me. And it's like, wow, that's sad because Steven really tried to save her. Granted, I got scared that he actually just sold her out at first when he went to the Abbott's house, but no, they stuck together still, thankfully.
I will say that I know the second Doctor has a companion who's from, I think, like the 1800s.
Okay.
Who's there the whole time. So we are going to get that idea played out soon.
Finally. Just later.
But yeah, with that ending scene, like, I think, like, the ending scene of Steven leaving the TARDIS and then the Doctor, like, talking to himself, I think that's a very, very good scene right there.
That's a great scene because I think it really shows a lot for the Doctor's character, but I also think it's at a very flawed time because he's kind of doubling down on he knows he's right when the whole point of that scene is you're wrong.
Yeah.
And it goes on about everyone else having left, including getting Chesterton's name wrong again. But the presentation of that scene and the phrasing is a little weird because he left Susan behind. She didn't choose to leave.
Yeah, he did.
She didn't misunderstand anything.
Maybe he's getting senile and he's forgetting.
It does feel a little bit like that, considering one of the very first things he said when Dodo, and we'll talk about her, when Dodo came in was, doesn't she look like my granddaughter? To Steven, who then said, I don't know, I never met her. Like, that's a little... I don't like that attitude. That's a little concerning.
Yeah. Last time we said Steven's basically a Modern Who companion, and I mean, he did leave the TARDIS and then decide to come back, so it's like he very much is a Modern Who companion now.
I still don't quite get why he came back. Like, he mentioned he came to warn the Doctor that some police officers were heading to the TARDIS looking to use it as a police box. But, like, I don't see the need to warn him for that. And I still don't quite understand why he came back, but...
Yeah, I don't know. I liked that scene when Steven was talking to the Doctor, and then when Doctor was talking to himself, and then I feel like it just immediately went downhill when Dodo showed up.
I mean...
It's just like, it's not nearly as strong. Like, I don't hate Dodo yet, but, like, it just ruined the heavy nature of the scene, I feel.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the way she was brought in the end of this episode, because it... Look, you can compare it to something like the end of Doomsday and the start of Runaway Bride in the modern era with Donna randomly appearing inside the TARDIS. It's a similar kind of thing of random woman just shows up in the TARDIS. But the reason why I don't like it for Dodo is she comes running in looking to get help for a boy that's injured, is what she says. And that gets immediately thrown out and nobody cares anymore. Like, the instant she says it. And it's like, well... I kind of want to know what the emergency was that she cared about, because everything we're seeing about her character after that one line is she's really kind of careless.
Yeah.
So what would have moved her to try to get help like that?
And I guess they just left the boy there to die or something. Although I guess maybe the police officers that were coming to the TARDIS had seen the boy maybe, and that's what you're supposed to think. I don't know.
Yeah, that's not conveyed very well.
Kind of left him with no help.
Yeah, it's not conveyed very well, and that does kind of bother me. I think her introduction is way too forced in. It's not like the Donna Noble thing where it's specifically a cliffhanger to get you interested in what's next. It feels like, well, getting Anne as the companion didn't work out, so we got to get another woman in here real quick. Rather than it being someone we introduce next time when we land, let's just make it some other random human from this modern time that's going to get thrown in with them.
Yeah, and apparently, like, the thought process was they had already written the script for a Celestial Toymaker, so they didn't want to have to edit it.
Yeah.
So they just went, okay, she'll have the same last name, and the first name has to be the same number of letters.
All right.
And that was the thought process. So she had to be Dodo Chaplet to replace Anne Chaplet. It's like, that's really weird.
I see. So okay, I didn't catch the thing with the last name. So the last name, so Chaplet, is that they're saying she might be related to Anne, or to Anne by chance?
Yeah.
The same last name? Okay.
I mean, the issue with that, though, is that, like, a woman's last name wouldn't survive. Like, she would get married and she wouldn't have a different last name. So, is she related? I don't know. They didn't really think that part through, I don't think.
I mean, Stephen might also come from a different time where he doesn't realize that.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. But from listening to the loose cannon reconstruction and the audio, I didn't realize what they said was Chaplet. I thought they said Chaplin. So I have in my notes here like Chaplin. Like, are they making that big of a leap? That's a little weird. Like Charlie Chaplin or something. Yeah. I was like, okay. But okay. Chaplin in connection to On right after the conversation they had earlier. Okay. That makes a little bit more sense, even though it's still a jump. It's still a leap.
Yeah, they do pronounce it a bit different because, like, it's with Anne, it's more of like a French pronunciation of the last name, and then with Dodo, they pronounce it English, so it's said a bit differently, but it's supposed to be the same.
Okay.
Same last name.
Okay, that's fair. I was shocked to see also that the TARDIS left Paris with 10 minutes left in the episode.
Yeah, that was definitely a bit weird.
But I think the reconstruction showing the art of the massacre with a bunch of, like, random character faces overlaid on it was not very good. Like, clearly, it depicted an awful time. Like, clearly, it was terrible. But I really wish we got to see how they chose to depict that originally.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they originally did that. I know that the opening title sequences having, like, art behind it, that was from the original.
Okay.
Where they tried their best to find, like, the exact same artwork there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about, like, the massacre part. I don't know how that was handled.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, otherwise, like, this loose cannon reconstruction had a lot more stills from surviving scenes, it looked like. Or at least it looked like they did a much better job than some past ones that we watched, where it actually looked like they had stuff from, at least one still from every scene, it practically looked like. Or a good amount.
I know that a lot of it was actually photoshopped. Like,
okay, yeah.
None of the images of William Hartnell as the abbot were, like, actually him in the role.
Oh, okay.
I think what they did was they took, like, the cloak that he wore in the Time Meddler, and then they just edited it to make it white. I think that's what they did for, like, all those scenes and stuff.
All right. So, well,
yeah.
Never mind what I said then. I just felt they had more visual variety in this loose cannon reconstruction than some of the other ones did. Is basically what I was thinking.
I think Steven's outfit, like some of those scenes where he was, like, in that outfit, I think those might have been surviving.
Okay.
Like when they were in the bar, I think some of those pictures were, like, promotional stills.
Ah, okay, I see.
I also loved that scene where he's just, like, sitting there and it's like, I'm waiting for my dad to pick me up.
Basically.
It's just funny.
Like, he's all things considered pretty obedient at that point. Like, he's trying to stay out of trouble. But he literally gets dragged into trouble because the doctor just doesn't show back up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Steven really is the highlight of this, though. Like,
yeah.
It's mainly focused on him. He's the one we're following the whole time. We're really seeing what he's learned from the doctor, but also his ideals as a person with everything he's been through. And you're right. He does feel much more like a modern companion. He calls the doctor out on BS and he leaves. I don't really like how they just had him come right back. I wish they explained it a little bit better, but I really do like his ideals, and he does feel like someone we would have in a modern era.
Yeah. I think, like, all the political stuff in this episode I didn't really enjoy. Like, it's just...
There was a lot of it.
The king and the queen mother, it's like, it's all so boring. Like, I didn't like any of that.
Yeah.
It's a great
and
Steven
all
character
religious
study,
tensions.
Yeah. Very, very dark and heavy.
If it was surviving, it might be one of the darkest episodes, to be honest, or darkest stories, to be honest.
Yeah. This serial was written by John Lucarotti, who did Marco Polo and the Aztecs. Although apparently it was so heavily edited by the script editor that he almost asked for his name to be removed.
Wow.
Because it was just like not at all what he wrote by the end of it. So
that's wild.
Technically written by him, but it's very little in common with like his original script.
Huh. Interesting. Now I wonder.
Part of it is that like he wrote more scenes with the abbot, and like maybe he met up with the doctor, and it's just like, we literally cannot film that. We cannot do that.
Why
and
not?
Then William Hartnell was...
we had the robot doctor in the previous season.
Yeah, but that didn't really look very good. And then William Hartnell wasn't even in episode 2, so like he was probably supposed to be in that.
Yeah.
And then he wasn't.
This episode had a lot of neat ideas, but it did fumble a lot. It really was only Steven and then like one of those very last scenes of their conversations, but continue.
Yeah. There was also a planned cameo in this of Ian and Barbara.
Oh.
Where they would have witnessed Dodo going into the TARDIS and seeing it dematerialize. In the finished episode, it was just like a random woman out there, but originally it was going to be Ian and Barbara there, which would have been very funny.
That would have been fun. I feel like that would have been disappointing in the case of nothing more said.
Yeah.
The random woman confused me because I thought she left the TARDIS and watched it dematerialize, and then we saw her inside again, and I was like, oh, I guess that was just some random person. Okay.
Yeah. And also, in 2013, they released a book called The Doctor, His Lives and Times.
Uh-huh.
And what they did was they took Clara Oswald and they just like edited her into images from past stories.
Right.
So, fun fact, Anne Chaplet was replaced by a Clara Oswald echo eventually.
Huh.
Which is very weird. Weird choice for a character there, I think, but sure.
I don't know how I feel about that. I think the random woman watching the TARDIS disappear would have been more fitting, but
yeah,
because the whole thing about the Clara echoes are they were supposed to be there to save the Doctor, and to some degree.
Yeah,
and did not do that.
Doesn't.
Anne did not do that at all. She saves Steven.
Well, I guess technically she makes it so that Dodo Chaplet exists somehow. So I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that feels a little... that feels like they didn't think it through too much, but...
Yeah, I think they just, like, randomly edited her into stuff, so it's like... If you have a brunette woman, we'll just turn her into Jenna Coleman.
Alright. Fair enough. I mean, I like Jenna Coleman, but that's odd.
Yeah.
But
and apparently Peter Purvis really liked this episode as well.
I mean,
which I can understand why he would like it.
Yeah,
because it's a Steven episode.
He got the star in it, and he actually got to do quite well. He won a fight technically for once. He
did.
he did win a fight for once. It was arguably a really dangerous fight because it was with swords, but
I found that scene so funny too because it's like we don't get to see anything. We just hear like the occasional clashing of swords. And,
yep.
Okay. It doesn't really work in recreation.
No,
like
sadly.
that.
Sadly, it does not. I think... I don't know. I guess I really wish more of this survived, because I think this is an episode that suffers by only being a loose cannon reconstruction. Some of the episodes that we've done so far, I feel like they've worked. Like, enough of it has survived, or they did a good enough job with the reconstruction that, like, enough conveys and is done well. But I think this episode... or these episodes, rather, I think we needed to see more. I know I mentioned how I felt like there was a good variety in what we saw, but especially like how they chose to depict the massacre and seeing Stephen connect with these other people that all ended up dying. I think it would have been good to see that in the acting more.
Yeah, I would definitely like to be able to. I would like to be able to see like William Hartnell's choices when he's playing the abbot as well.
Yes,
like if we could get that episode back, that would be very good to see, like how he physically portrays him differently.
Yeah,
because even with like the dialogue,
we couldn't really tell from the dialogue. Yeah,
even with the dialogue though, like he doesn't stumble over his words as much, which is worth noting because apparently that was also just like him actually stumbling over his words. But then in those scenes, he was like a bit more collected and stuff. So I would like to see like physically what he did there though.
Yeah, that's true. It would be nice to see how he went about it differently and how he didn't fumble, but also like how he held himself differently with all that.
Yeah,
it's a shame we don't have it.
And I think that powerful scene in episode 4, that would also be a lot better if you could actually see them talking to each other.
Yep. Like actually see a lot of the emotion in Steven's face and how dismissive the doctor's being.
Yeah. Also, another piece of trivia is this is the first serial that has been directed by a woman, who is Patty Russell. She will come back for a few other stories, including Pyramids of Mars, which is a very important one.
Yeah.
She was apparently the first choice to direct Edge of Destruction, but she wasn't available.
Oh, wow. That would have been cool.
Yeah. So, John Wiles, who is the producer, and Donald Tosh, who is the script editor, also quit during this story.
Well,
so John Wiles is still there for the next one because his replacement has to shadow him, but Donald Tosh is just gone.
Gotcha.
So Innes Lloyd is the new producer, and Jerry Davis is the new script editor, which also means we are officially towards the end of the first Doctor's time, because this is the production team that will oversee the first regeneration.
Wow, we're getting there. Crazy.
Yep.
So, I guess as final thoughts on the Massacre, what would you say is like biggest standout takeaway from this serial to you? Because to me, it really is that Steven's at his wit's end with the Doctor. We know how he feels about the Doctor and everything that's going on. He is done.
Yeah, I definitely think Stephen is like definitely the standout for this story. It's nice to get time with him because like we haven't really established him all that much in the other stories. Whereas in this, it's a Stephen character study essentially.
Yep.
I do find it a bit disappointing how, like, in the arc, we just don't talk about any of this. We don't talk about how he almost quit the TARDIS. He's just on the TARDIS now, again.
Yeah,
this story was good from that perspective.
Yeah. From Steven's perspective, it was good, but unfortunately, that's kind of the only perspective it was good from. The Doctor has that one really good scene at the end, but even then, that's because of Steven.
Yeah.
But that brings us to the arc, which is the first surviving serial in quite some time that we've had, which was very refreshing. And it was a really interesting premise, actually. The idea that this arc, this spaceship that's traveling to a refuge on another planet, leaving Earth, so it has the humans and the monoids, which interesting kind of Cyclops creatures, but
yeah.
This was an interesting story because I think Dodo jumped into the role of a companion who stands with the Doctor, like Vicky and Susan, really quickly. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but she fit into that role really quickly. That's so fast that I felt like I was missing something.
Yeah. To be honest, I kind of feel like they haven't really been doing that much great character work with our female companions here.
Sadly.
Because I feel like, they got rid of Vicky, and I don't think they were ever prepared to replace her. So it's just like...
No.
Yeah, they just didn't know what to do, so they just like immediately had her there.
I did like her banter with Steven, how she's like, oh, obviously we're on Earth. Look at all these animals. He's like, how do you know that? And she's like, I learned it in school. Like, it was actually just really funny at first. I almost feel like having this other person to bounce off of helped Steven decide to stay, because now it's to help her as opposed to the doctor. But
yeah,
despite
he does kind of tell the doctor off a bit, and like, you know, you just kidnapped this random girl, and like, we're not going to be able to get her home.
Yep. No, and that's the thing. I think despite not talking about why he left and then came right back, I do think this episode does a good job still kind of continuing this mindset for Steven, that it's almost like he's stepping up to the protagonist role that Ian originally had. That he's trying to take charge, not forcefully from the doctor, but not letting the doctor completely have his ways. He trusts the doctor, but with his life, but he also knows to step up at this point.
Yeah. I definitely like how Steven's coming across recently.
Mm-hmm.
I do think this story is a bit of a mess in some aspects, but it definitely has some cool ideas in there. Like, I liked how, you know, at the end of episode 2, they think they're leaving, and then it's just like, oh, wait, we're actually at the exact same location.
Just, you know, hundreds of years later.
When this was all coming out live, like, people wouldn't have known that it was a 4-part story. They would have thought it was only a 2-part story until you get to the end, and it's like, oh, wait, it's actually a 4-parter.
And that is a cool twist. That is cool. We haven't had the TARDIS really do that yet. Land in the same place, just further into the future. I really liked that.
Yeah. I think it kind of has the issue, though, where, like, you know, the first half is just the Sensorites crushed down into a 2-parter.
Yeah.
And then the second half is Planet of the Ood, but not done nearly as well.
That's very true.
They don't want you to think that the formerly enslaved race is at all a good group of people, which is like, that's kind of weird morals you got right there.
see what I thought what they were going for was they wanted to enslave the human race all along, and they waited until they were closer to the new planet. That's what I thought they were going for.
Yeah.
But no, instead it's we had a revolution and we took over. It's like, oh, then I only feel bad in the case of that they're still slaves. Can we just do exactly what they wanted at the end of the refusion's been like, you must make peace together.
Yeah. Some weird morals in there.
Yeah.
I guess at the end they make it better.
Allegedly. We'll see how that actually goes.
Yeah. Steven gets very good lines here as well, where he's like calling out the humans for being like overly combative and stuff.
Yep.
Which is very nice to see him saying stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Steven has some really good moments here too, I think. Like, he takes charge. Like, he pretty much leads a small-scale revolution of the humans. And it's kind of good to see that leadership quality in him now, because he really didn't have that much before.
Yeah. I did also find it a bit funny how, you know, we make a big deal about the animals in the first episode, and then the animals are just not there ever again. So it's like, what happened to all the animals? We just have them in episode 1 because we wanted to have a scene with them interacting with an elephant, I guess. And then in the second half, like, did they all die? Because no one mentioned them.
The jungle still had, like, noises. So I imagine the animals were still there. They just weren't.
I guess.
They weren't as important. They knew they were in the same place. They didn't need to use the animals to identify anything. They didn't need to use the animals to get something from them for some sort of cure.
You also have to wonder, like, why they didn't just miniaturize all the animals. Because
that's true.
You have that technology. That would be a lot easier.
That's very true.
Like, if you want to keep all these animals alive for 700 years, that's not going to work unless you miniaturize them.
Yeah. Because otherwise you have to, like, really work to actually, like, breed them and keeping them all healthy and alive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not killing each other. Things like that. There's definitely a lot of little things that, when you look at it, don't quite make sense about this serial. But I do think it was cool that they were, like, pretty much the farthest into the future they've ever been.
Yeah.
It felt like. And, like, to the point where, like, the way they counted time was differently. Like, it was handled differently, how they even, like, identify, like, centuries and things like that.
It's like the 10th unit of time, I think they said.
This is like the 10th segment or something like that.
Whereas everything that we know of as time is the first segment.
Yep. Which is really, I thought that was actually like really cool.
Yeah.
It really like put into perspective how far along this was. Let's see. I have in my notes here. I really want to talk about the refusions because I loved how inconsistent it was of, are they invisible? Are they pure energy and just don't have physical forms? It's because they don't need to move chairs and move plants and all that then if they don't have corporeal forms.
Yeah. That was a bit odd.
There was also the moment where after the Guardians opened the door of like the ship that came back and they're like, oh, it's empty. And then the Refusion starts laughing. That was really ominous in how it was presented because that was an evil kind of laugh that I thought if there was more time in the episode, it was going to turn into more. Now there's a third enemy.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they wanted the ship all along or something like that. But no. It was just a weirdly ominous laugh.
And then he just picks up the statue and throws it out, and then it gets affected by gravity for some reason.
Really funny.
It's in space.
Really funny how they just they just eject the statue and it blows up.
Yeah.
I also found it really funny how quick the Refusions were to just blow up the launcher, the first one. Like when the second monoid was like recounting, like, here's what we know about the planet, it just they were quick to blow that up, and the Doctor didn't do or say anything about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there were some good ideas in here, but I don't think I really liked it that much.
Yeah, I think I liked Steven's scenes in this again the most. Yeah, I don't really get a sense for who Dodo is supposed to be. It very much feels like she's being a Susan replacement, and I don't like how much the Doctor is hanging up over her dialogue, how she's talking.
Yeah.
What did you say? Okay, that's not English. What? Like, Doctor, what if you're traveling with someone from the future who's already not talking properly, formally? Like, come on.
It takes a while to get used to calling her Dodo as well, which is a bit weird. Apparently, as I said, Celestial Toymaker was written with Anne, so she's apparently kind of stupid in the Celestial Toymaker.
Great.
Because they write her as if she's, from France from 300 years ago. So,
as opposed to, this... What is it? She's like an orphan girl that's young?
I think she had like a great aunt or something that she lived with.
Okay.
Something like that. But yeah. They really haven't established her very well so far.
And it makes me wonder if they will at all.
Yeah, because she's not here very long. She will leave at the end of the season. Because I guess the new production team just didn't really like her character that much, so they just got rid of her.
She feels directionless right now. Like, at least when Vicky joined in, you could immediately tell what they were going for with her. But yeah, with Dodo, I mean, like, the only sense we really have is the Doctor joked that she looks like Susan. He doesn't like the way she speaks, and she doesn't like being told what to do. Except she very quickly folds. So even though she has a bit of overconfidence and is a bit spunky, she still fills that kind of companion void of, almost like a generic companion kind of moment, basically.
Yeah. Apparently they wanted her to have more of like a working class accent as well, but then the executives kind of just told them, you're not allowed to do that for some reason.
Okay.
So that explains like why she talks a bit differently and stuff. But they were told like, you have to talk in BBC English, which is like more pretentious, I guess. So
all right.
They had to pivot away from that. I don't know.
That's weird.
But yeah, it definitely feels like this production team just never wanted to introduce a new companion, but they got rid of Vicky, so they had to. And it doesn't feel like they ever wanted to do it.
Yeah, it's rough, and unfortunately, you feel it.
I will also say that when they were making this story, Innes Lloyd pulled Peter Purves aside and said, we want companions to only last for 1 year, so we're not going to renew your contract.
Oh,
so
all right. So at this point,
kind of immediately fired someone again.
Yeah,
but this time it was like, we're going to finish out your contract, so you're still here for another 12 episodes. Because he's still here for 3 more serials.
Yep.
But yeah,
I mean, with the fact that he was about to leave, it felt like Steven's actor was already kind of looking to leave potentially. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe. It is funny though. Like they told him that like they only want companions for 1 year, and then fast forward to the second Doctor's time, and Jamie McCribbin is his companion for the entire runtime of the second Doctor.
Yeah.
So like they're going to introduce a 3-season long companion.
Jamie was also incredibly popular, more than they expected and realized, though.
Yeah.
So
that might be why he sticks around.
Mm-hmm. So between the Massacre and the Ark, which one did you like better?
I would say I probably liked the Ark better. Like, I kind of liked the first 2 episodes of the Ark, and then the second 2, it went a bit downhill in some aspects.
Yep, exactly.
Whereas the Massacre, like, I liked Steven, but I didn't like anything other than Steven.
Yeah. I'm 100% there with you, honestly. I liked the design of the monoids. I did like the costume design.
Yeah, that was interesting. And apparently what they did was they took ping pong balls and they just had ping pong balls in their mouths.
Yeah, I like how you could see it's their mouth. That's kind of funny. It's creative.
Yeah, they had some creative ways to do things, because there was also the miniaturization scene. Apparently what they did was they just like moved a camera backwards very quickly to like show that guy being shrunk.
Oh, that's
and then just overlaid that with like the footage of like the thing he was inside of.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, from a modern perspective, that scene's not very impressive. But when you think about the fact that they didn't have CGI, it's very impressive that they managed to get that to work.
Yeah. No, like I actually thought the miniaturization looked like surprisingly good for what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, there were. These are definitely not my favorite stories, I have to say.
Yeah. There were a couple standout scenes, but that's really it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that brings us into news, which is pretty much just some more news for The War Between the Land and the Sea, that spinoff coming next year with UNIT and the Sea Devils. So we have a couple new cast members. Well, not really new, more like returning cast members that we now know about, being Ruth Madeley, who plays Shirley from the 60th anniversary specials, and Colin McFarlane, returning as General Austin Pierce from Torchwood, which is really interesting to me because he was specifically the general in Torchwood Children of Earth, which was like very like he was one of like the government officials. He was a general. I'm pretty sure he was a general for UNIT, but it was a really big deal during a lot of like the government scenes. So seeing him return in the same role is good continuity and makes me really, really curious what role he'll play here.
Well, I have to assume that it's going to be like a full all-out war between the Sea Devils and humanity. So he's probably just going to have like a very similar role where he's just the government official dealing with the war and everything.
I suspect he's going to be not quite an antagonist. He's going to be a foil to Kate Stewart, I think.
Yeah,
because
I haven't seen Torchwood myself, so like I still need to do that. But I don't know this character super well.
Basically, as being like a high-ranking general in UNIT, he's the UNIT of old, basically. I imagine he would represent the UNIT of old that's quick to go to war, whereas I think Kate Stewart's going to be leaning the side that's trying to not necessarily make peace, but resolve the situation without it necessarily being all-out war. Yeah. So I think they're going to be at odds with each other the entire time. The two, since we know Kate Stewart keeps introducing herself as the head of unit, but we know before she's specifically the head of like the science side of it. So we don't know to what degree of head of unit she is. General Austin Pierce might be like another head of unit, and we might see something like that here, I think.
Yeah. And I'm glad that Shirley's coming back, because she was great.
She was great.
In the 60th.
She was great. I'm very glad we're going to get more of her. I just hope we get her back in specifically Doctor Who as well.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
But
it seemed like they only replaced her in like the finale for last season, because it seemed like she just wasn't able to film it. Which is the only reason why they had a different person there.
That's what I think. They got a bunch of scientific advisors at unit. It's fine. They can rotate them out.
Yeah.
But at this point...
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, at this point, from everything we've seen about the war between land and the sea, I'm definitely really curious about it. And I'm looking forward to what it shapes into.
Yeah. Should be a fun time, like a year from now.
Yeah, right. It'll be a ways away, but we'll get to it when we get to it. And whenever that'll be, I'm excited about it.
Yep.
As a reminder, you guys can support us on Patreon. And if you do, for $1 a month, you'll be able to get into our Discord, where you'll be able to discuss these episodes with us that we're currently watching, get early access to these episodes, maybe talk about the news with us. But if you support us at $5 a month, you'll be able to watch us live. And we'll have a little side chat here that we can read out your messages. So maybe you want to tell us here that General Austin Pierce is going to be the most important character in the war between the land and the sea. And actually, the arc is the most important story of Doctor Who ever, for some reason. And we'll have a really extensive conversation about it.
Yep.
And that's where we would normally have those.
I suppose I should watch Torchwood at some point in this next year.
Yeah, I think you should. You could definitely, like, skip over, like, little things you don't like, but at the very least, Torchwood Children of Earth is specifically where Austin Pierce comes from. So if you watch anything, it should be that 5-episode special.
Yeah. I mean, I've been slowly doing a rewatch of Modern Who, so I'll just throw Torchwood in there, and Sarah Jane Adventures.
Yeah, Sarah Jane. That'd be great. Well, Joy, I'll toss it to you for our next episode prep then.
Our next episode will actually be the one and only episode this season where we actually get to watch moving stuff for both stories.
Yeah!
It's very nice. Although that's assuming that people in our audience have bought The Celestial Toymaker, because that just came out in animated form. So... You know, The Celestial Toymaker and The Gunfighters are the two stories. Celestial Toymaker just got an animated version like 2 months ago. So that, you know, you have to buy that, but it's out there.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't bought it, there is also a loose canon reconstruction of it. And the 4th episode is Surviving. If you do have the Blu-ray, it does also have like the original Surviving 4th episode on there. And
nice.
It has its own like reconstruction of the first 3 episodes if you want that as well. And then The Gunfighters is 4 episodes that all survive, and you'll find those on Tubi TV or BritBox or BBC iPlayer, wherever you get your wherever you get your classic Doctor Who. But yeah, we'll actually get to see moving stuff for 2 stories this time.
It's gonna be exciting. 8 episodes of motion.
Yep.
But yeah, make sure you guys watch The Celestial Toymaker and The Gunfighters before our next episode. And as a reminder, if you support us on Patreon for even just $1 a month, you'll get access to our Discord and early access to these episodes after they're recorded. I have been Tris. You can find me on social media at ToonTris.
And I've been Joy. You can find me at Joy Content.
And we'll see you all next time for The Celestial Toymaker.
Bye.
Bye.